Off we go into the Wild Blue Yonder.
This was probably the most anticipated for some, wasn't it, of the three anniversary specials, partially because very little was revealed about it in advance.
Yes.
And now we know there was a very good reason for that, but not the one that some people may have been expecting and hyping themselves up for.
Setting themselves up for disappointment. As I think Russell said on the official podcast, he's like, maybe it's going to be sort of detrimental for people watching it.
Yeah, he watches us out there on social, not us specifically, not me and you, but fandom in general. He keeps his ear to the ground. He hears the whispers of, oh, Matt Smith's coming back, or the ghost of William Hartnell will appear. He knows what he's doing.
God, that would have been great.
But yeah, certainly we didn't get any of that in there. We got a much more personal character-based story, which I feel was the right move when you're bringing back these two incredible actors, for one thing, in the form of David Tennant and Catherine Tate. Also, these characters, after 15 years, where, they've spent a lot of time apart. They're different people now. Donna's a mum. And so, obviously, the Doctor's had all of Flux and everything, all of the hybrid arc, all of Trenzalore, all that stuff has happened since. And so with that, it's interesting to look at these two as friends who, are still friends, will remain friends. There's that bond there, but at the same time, they're not the same people. They can't just pick up where they left off and be, those two people that we knew back in 2008. And I think it's wonderful the way that Russell has approached this, not as nostalgia bait. Obviously, there's always going to be nostalgia there. You can't avoid that. But, it's not just taking them out the cupboard, dusting off the old clothes and throwing them back into action as if nothing's ever changed. Yeah. It is, really treating them as people and saying, people move on. And I think that is a wonderful approach to have here, and to have this story be something entirely focused on them, having them wandering around a spaceship and then some really creepy shit going down. I mean, not for the reasons of being hyped up for cameos, but you weren't as keen on this one on your first watch, were you?
Yeah, so I think that's the thing. I didn't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. And I rewatched it and I got it. It just clicked with me. I was like, you know what? This is a modern day Stone Cold classic by Russell.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, you've watched it twice now. Mm-hmm. I've only gone for it the once. Not out of any distaste for anything. I did really enjoy that first watch. But unlike something like Star Beast, I don't feel like it's as easy to put on. Like, it's much more midnight in style. In fact, even with the entities within this, there's that similar concept from Russell of, these more abstract creatures trying to take from us something more physical and real, like a voice or a body and self. And so with that, you've got a really good episode, but with something like Midnight, I don't always go back to that as often. Like, I would say Midnight's a better episode than Partners in Crime. You'd disagree there, and that is fair enough, because I do love Partners in Crime as well, and I love it so much that I do go back to it a lot more than I go back to Midnight. But I do at the same time feel like Midnight's the better episode, and I think it's the same case for Star Beast and Wild Blue Yonder. Wild Blue Yonder is the stronger of the two scripts by far. Well, not even by far. That feels a disservice to Star Beast, because Star Beast is brilliant as well. Yes. But, Wild Blue Yonder is something special. It's like high art, I suppose.
It's its own entity. It's its own particular flavour of Doctor Who, and it's one of the ones that I don't think that flavour should be done every week.
Yeah, it's certainly, not to everyone's taste.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Star Beast is a much more easily palatable meal.
It's family viewing.
Yeah. And this certainly pushes family viewing a bit more because there are some creepy moments within this.
It's
But
unnerving, but you also don't know whether to laugh or be scared by it.
because
Especially
certainly
sort of the car, the weird sort of car chase sequence. Like you're like, this is funny, but the images behind it with the weird sort of filters on David and Catherine's face feel quite scary, and yeah, it's horrible.
yeah, like especially Catherine's, like with
Yeah.
the fringe over her eyes and just the teeth going mad. Like I think the fact that it's never the focus of a shot as well, it's always like slightly out of it, makes it really unnerving at the same time.
And there's sort of
so
an animalistic nature to Catherine in it, like you say, that scene, and then when she's counting the grains of salt. So yeah, very animalistic.
Yeah. And I mean, one of those moments where you don't know whether to laugh or be scared is the Dana 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 Dana.
Yeah.
Where David's as he joked in the Doctor Who Unleashed, bending over backwards for this show.
Yeah.
Like that was something else. Yeah, but I think the fact that it takes itself seriously makes those scares that much more real. Like certainly a moment that got me is just that initial switch over to the Doctor's perspective where he's in the blue water room.
The spindle room.
And you realise, wait, no, he's still in there. Then who's with Donna? That sort of chill I got from that as I realised, so this is where we're going with this. Like, I'd drawn into Doctor Who again, and to be able to still get those same chills that I got when I was a child, but in a different way. You got those chills and that excitement from the Star Beast, from the hype of it, whereas here, from watching it, from experiencing these unnerving existential dread moments. I think Russell always does very well.
Yeah, I love the bit when you have them in sort of the sort of main sort of cockpit area. And you've got them talking about being that far out on the edge, and it sort of reminded me of the bit in, I think, The Impossible Planet, when it's like the little voice telling you to jump, go on, do it. Yeah, that same sort of bit when you have the Doctor talking to Ida. You have that sort of dread to it as the huge two-parter in series 2, I'd say.
Yeah. It's very much, taking the vast expanse of reality and showing us how small humanity is in one way, but how big we are in another. We're out there making sense of the chaos. And yeah, I think that's wonderful. I mean, I was thinking Impossible Planet as well, but the scene where they're talking about getting home, the Doctor and Rose, and he says, "Oh, go that way, turn left, go however far." It sort of was reminding me of that when the Doctor's pointing out to where Earth would be from that spaceship, and just the vast blackness out there because they're so far away that the light of the universe hasn't even reached the ship yet. That is an insane thought, and I think one that really does add to a lot of the existential dread of this, and the idea of there being these creatures out there again, similar to Midnight, such an inhospitable environment, and yet somehow something has evolved there. And what form would that take, or in this case, what form didn't it take? I think wonderful stuff.
It very much feels like an EDA book. It feels like one of those books sort of brought to screen, and Big Finish have done something similar with The Ghost and the Machine and Midnight. It feels like this is kind of like a trilogy to that, really. Because I think what this story does, like you say, with the dread, it builds up to that. You've got the wonderful classic Ark in Space feel, the world building, and the mystery.
Almost 60s Who, isn't it? Just the main characters walking around this spaceship trying to work out what's going on here.
Like the airlock, the knocking, Like it just everything's resolved in such a clever, tight way.
Yeah. It's like stuff's not thrown in there just, to tick a box of a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
It's all very well thought out and plotted.
And I commend Russell for that, because obviously there's temptations to have William Hartnell riding a Garmin. That's great, but how can you sustain that?
How would you make sense of that?
Yeah, which I guess you could do it, because if the creature, the entities in the Doctor's headspace, then you could. Maybe the Doctor's just thinking back, this moment of Terminus, here's a big hairy Garm.
I'm just thinking of the Space Museum now, know, when he's like putting his thoughts on the screen.
Yeah.
The Victorian bathing suit. Like, what if he starts messing about with that?
God, that was a brilliant moment, using characters' weaknesses like the Doctor's ability to think and just try and process it and learn. It's so wonderful. And
the fact that the not things are scaring the Doctor and Donna, not because they're actively trying to kill them just yet, but because they're trying to get them to think faster. They're getting that adrenaline running so that they can evolve quicker, become them quicker. Like, that's wonderful that is thought into the script as well. It's not just, this is a monster, it needs to be scary, it needs to chase after the Doctor and Donna. It is, okay, this needs to happen, but why does this need to happen? How can we make sense of that and rationalize it within the script? There we go. They need to think faster.
And I love how this story, it is a character study, and I think it shows how vulnerable and fragile these two characters are, especially how the Doctor is when he's talking about, I've missed you, there's so much happened, like the flux, the timeless child getting a reference, which I'm glad it did.
I mean, it's amazing to think the flux has had more emotional weight now than it did throughout the entire time it was on, and the rest of the 13th Doctor specials. Like, it actually has emotional impact now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also weird that it was so unclear during the time and afterwards that we only now can safely confirm that half the universe was destroyed by it, which, I mean, that's pretty... I think especially to have this story set on the edge of known existence, have it that far out from the universe, and then to have the point of half that universe now being gone that they are so far away from, I think that adds an extra poignancy to that statement. But, I mean, that's sort of wild that Russell has paid more attention to Chibnall's scripts than Chibnall himself perhaps did.
Like, I think maybe it's a detriment to people coming onto the show going, what's the flux?
I imagine they'll just have a... The thing is, you could probably say the same for the Time War, really.
Yeah.
Like, people will go, what's the Time War? That must be in the classic series.
Yeah.
No. So, it's not necessarily going to do any harm in that sense. And I think, the episode puts enough context on it that you don't need to have watched any of the flux or anything to understand exactly what the Doctor's going on about there.
And then you have Donna's vulnerability about getting back to Rose and her family. And then you have, and I love that normally the Doctor's a character that gets it right. He's always getting it right. You've got Donna, throughout the story going, come on, we can do this. You're always making things right. Whereas you have him picking the wrong Donna, and it shows that he is valuable, that he can make these mistakes.
I mean, to be that drawn in again to Doctor Who, and like actually be terrified for a character's fate. Like, I was on the edge of my seat during that moment as the flames are going distance. I was like, wait, are we actually gonna do this? Is Donna really gonna die here, and we're gonna have fake Donna for the giggle?
Yeah.
But to be drawn into that on a human level, be fearing for Donna's life, not just be thinking, that could be an interesting plot development. No, I was there going, bloody hell, I hope Donna gets out of this.
Yeah, get her back, go back.
Just to be that drawn in again is... We don't know how lucky we are.
And I think this is the thing. I loved Tennant and Tate when I was a 10-year-old. I adore them as a 25-year-old.
Mm.
And I think we're so blessed to have them back. And it makes total sense, Russell's reasoning. Why wouldn't you want to just have them two together in an episode?
Mm. And I mean, David as well, as the 14th Doctor. I prefer 14th to 10 at this point.
Yeah.
It's just a wonderful evolution of that character.
And I'm not ready to say goodbye to him.
No, it's a
I
shame.
want more.
We're more than halfway.
I need more. Like, I'd happily take a series of that, of what we've got now, because they're just we're so lucky to have those two.
Yeah, it is wonderful. I mean, we didn't just have David and Catherine in here, though.
Mm-hmm.
We also had Bernard Cribbins for one last scene, one last wonderful, heartwarming scene at the end.
That took me by surprise. Even though it was sort of hinted at in the story that Gramps would be there waiting with a deck chair, and there he was at the end.
Yeah,
wonderful.
I mean, we sort of were, because obviously we saw the filming photos. We were sort of expecting for the Star Beast maybe, because we knew the Camden set. And then after that, I was sort of more expecting, probably the Giggle. But no, we got him here instead. And I think it's nice that it's in that story where Wild Blue Yonder turns out to be almost named after him in a way. Or certainly, the fact that the song, being about soldiers going off to war and him having that discussion with Mrs. Bean, it's nice that he is thematically tied into that title that the episode has. That was something special. Just so heartwarming to see him there and the interaction between the trio.
And it made everything better.
Yeah,
having him there.
The world's all right now. David is. Yeah, nothing is wrong in the entire world. I think he says.
Yeah,
couldn't be further from the truth in universe, but certainly out of universe. Seeing that, it was one of those moments where everything just felt right with your life. Seeing Bernard back on screen as Will for one last time.
And it feels like a nice sort of full circle moment now because we've kind of completed the Noble family set return, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've had Sylvia, we've had Sean, we've had New Edition Rose, and now we've got Wilf. And of course Donna.
Yeah.
Sort of like when you think of the family, you don't necessarily think of the linchpin of it or the companion.
Yeah.
You're sort of thinking more extended, but yeah. It's wonderful having them all back, and nice for the Doctor to get that one last scene with him.
It wasn't the scene I was expecting, because I was really hoping we'd get a nice little reunion in his little cottage. But I still think it worked.
Yeah, I think it's nice, that concept of him keeping watch out for them.
Yeah.
Waiting for them to come back so we can let them know that the world's going to shit at the moment.
It is a bit daft though, but you stay at home, love. Send out your 90-year-old dad.
Yeah, it was bad enough when he was, late 70s, early 80s, but now it just feels a bit more, even further out there. But no, I mean, it does also feel very Wilf at the same time.
Yeah, has he got his little revolver? It's like taking pot shots to pick up near him. Get away, or paintball.
Do you want to play a game? Wilf, will I heck? Hot shot at Cyril.
Yeah.
Clara the Clown's gonna get it. But yeah, I mean, that was wonderful. Brilliant. I mean, slightly less wonderful because there were one or two negatives. Wasn't overly keen on the intro scene.
Yeah, the pre-title
sequence. I felt a bit tonal whiplash from where the rest of the episode goes. It almost felt like a minisode.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can't say I hated the Mavity joke though. Like, that gave me a good chuckle as it carried on throughout the episode.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it just shows how easily time can be changed. Unless it becomes a future plot point later on, which would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it will be a recurring joke, because we know Russell does like those. Yeah, I mean, I do I think the best use of it was when the Doctor says gravity, and Donna's like, "What? Oh, mavity."
Yeah.
It's very tongue in cheek. I did approve that. I mean, one other negative I had that you have a different take on is the slightly awkward CGI big corridor.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it was. I mean, part of the problem is it's too clean, whereas a lot of the other sets are a bit darker, a bit more grungier. They feel a bit more lived in and used. And I think that works better, whereas the CGI just doesn't then match that, and it feels a bit too clean. At the same time, it feels very, the worst parts of Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett when they're on the volume, and how, you could just tell that, oh, that's not a real environment.
See, I think that works for the story with the artificial nature of it. Like, I get the criticism because I had it when I first watched it, going, God, this Disney money's not working there. But watching it the second time and knowing what the story's doing, and maybe it being a sort of a commentary on AI, on how close can that get to us.
Oh, I didn't think of that. That's
but it will never be
interesting. Yeah.
It works well. I think it sort of it matches the story. I don't think that was the intent, but I like it.
I approve that as a reading of it, actually. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, still not necessarily a fan of it, but we'll see on rewatch. And it doesn't. I say not a fan of it, but it's just like, it's something I could point out as a flaw.
Yeah.
But I can get over it. I'm not sitting there watching it going, oh, get this off my screen the whole time.
It's a nice reminder that Doctor Who's the little show that could. You're always waiting for that moment of going, God, that's Doctor Who. Like, you're waiting for that moment. And yeah, it's nice to know that it's still there, despite all
this arguably had quite a few of them with the the different limbs and stretching and stuff. But I mean, a lot of those limbs were practical, though.
And that felt very Russell. You can imagine kids in the playing ground going, my arm's too long. Like, it has that.
It's that catchphrase again, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it sort of reminded me of the moment in Silence in the Library of, there are 4 of us in here, why are there 5 shadows?
Yes.
It sort of has that idea of, something's a little bit off here.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I did. Yeah, I did really enjoy this episode. And I think it's interesting that it's probably the low budget one of the 3. Like, this is the money saver.
Yeah.
And yet still it looks amazing. That explosion and everything. This has had so much poured into it compared to, say, Midnight, again, the other the episode this is constantly going to get compared to. That was a money saving episode. But, you compare that with actually one small set for the most part. And I think that's all it needs, because that is brilliant in its own right. It's almost a theatre production, isn't it? Could easily be turned into one. This is pushing it out there a lot more. I mean, just 2 actors doing what they do best, acting brilliantly. And I'm so glad that we're able to get something like this in a 60th anniversary. A time when Doctor Who usually pushes plot to the side a little bit. So maybe not necessarily make the best episodes, but make the most fan appealing episodes. And I'm glad that instead we're getting best episodes that are also very fan appealing, because it's important to remember that David and Catherine were in the show all that time ago and are coming back now. That is still something to celebrate.
And I don't think it's Russell's style to go, hey, let's get the band back together. I think it's more, this is why Doctor Who's wonderful. Doctor Who can play in so many sandboxes, so many genres can be mixed in. And I think this is what this anniversary is.
Yeah, and I just can't wait for what comes next now as well. Like, this feels like Russell showcasing that he's still got a lot more in him. He's not just recycling the old tricks. He has new stories to tell. And so it makes me more hyped for Ncuti Gatwa's era as the Doctor. What could be coming then when he's had all these new ideas? He's grown this much as a writer. I think the future is looking very bright for Doctor Who. It's not just, we're getting turning back to 3 specials, back to business as usual. No, for the first time in a long time with Doctor Who, it feels like the only way is up. But not because we're at a bad starting point, but because, it can,
the foundation.
It can get worse from here, but I don't think it will.
No.
I think,
we're
you're right.
trajectory.
Foundations are being laid. Yeah, I sort of messed up that metaphor a bit at the end there, but yeah. So hopefully everyone knows what I'm getting at there.
What would you rate Wild Blue Yonder?
I think a good 9, 9.5.
I'd agree. The goodness.
Yeah.
So that has been our review on one of the most bizarre bits of Doctor Who, but a welcome addition to the collection of episodes to the Whoniverse. We'll join you for the giggle, which will be interesting to see how that goes down. Are we prepared to say goodbye to these two? No.
Ooh, no. But we're ready to say hello to shooting at the same time.
Yeah, it feels bizarre that we're at that point now, because we've been looking forward to these specials for so long, and then it's like it's over.
I'm so glad they didn't do 3 consecutive days.
Yeah,
because 3 consecutive weeks feels like it's going
too
fast
quick.
enough. Yeah.
But if you've enjoyed this video, then please do like and subscribe, and we'll be back to talk more all things Doctor Who later on. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Take care, everyone, and enjoy the giggle.